Now to Mexico, where almost 100 million people are expected to vote on Sunday in the biggest election in the country's history. These midterms will see the election of 500 deputies to Congress, as well as governors and mayors. But the polls will take place against a backdrop of political violence that includes murder. Almost 90 politicians or candidates have been killed since last September.
It was while travelling along this road that Yvonne Gallegos was murdered. She'd been hoping to represent a town in the south of Mexico in the upcoming elections. But in March, she withdrew from the race because of increased threats. Just 2 days later, she was assassinated. Her husband had already been murdered in 2015, and yet that hadn't put her off politics. She always said, "He who owes nothing fears nothing." Since last September, almost 90 politicians, including many who were due to stand in Sunday's elections, have been killed. And there have been numerous other assassination attempts. Mayoral candidate Guillermo Valencia is now always accompanied by bodyguards after an attack last month. It changes your life because you have to ride in an armoured car when you're not used to it. You have to be careful because you don't know what's going to happen. Although no one is sure who's behind the political violence, the finger is being pointed at organised crime gangs, including drug cartels. In many municipalities, the elections are increasingly a game of life and death, which I think is a fundamental problem of what's happening in Mexico. It can't be that as a candidate, you run in an election thinking you're going to die. Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has promised candidates protection, but he's also fighting his own battles. Although he's not up for re-election himself, many in his political party Morena are. The contest will decide whether the left-wing party and its allies keep the two-thirds majority in the lower house of Congress. The president is still popular, but his administration has been criticised for its handling of the coronavirus pandemic, and the Mexican economy is also struggling. It's crime, though, that's still top of voters' concerns, illustrated yet again in an election campaign beset by violence, something that the loved ones of Yvonne Gallegos know all too well.
Let's take a closer look at this with journalist Sandra Weiss, who joins us from San Pedro Cholula, which is southeast of Mexico City. Welcome to DW. Why hasn't the government been able to prevent so much deadly violence?
Well, he actually promised to replace the war on cartels by a strategy he called hacks, not bullets, but he wasn't able to deliver. He had quite a contradictory handling of the violence. He has, on one hand, militarized the security and strengthened an office that is fighting money laundering, but on the other hand, he dismantled important institutions in a justice system, for instance, an independent prosecutor's office. So his critics say he hasn't any clear strategy at all.
And so how much are these midterms being seen as a referendum on the president, on President Obrador, and indeed of his handling of the pandemic?
Well, Mexico's president didn't take the pandemic very seriously at the beginning. He never ordered strict nationwide lockdowns, for instance. So Mexico has had a really high death toll. But then he bought on an early stage many vaccines. And so Mexico was able to start vaccination as soon as December. Up to now, about 25% of the elderly have received the vaccine. And surveys show that those people are very grateful to his administration and that they are prone to vote for Morena. So his strategy finally hasn't backfired at him.
Right. So Mexico is often portrayed as a country that is in the pay of the drugs cartels with an infrastructure, with a legal infrastructure that doesn't work and indeed is corrupt. Mm-hmm. And yet they're expecting record numbers of people to turn out to vote for mayors and people in Parliament. Why is that?
Well, we will see if there are record masses turning out to vote for him. But usually Mexico's parties are very well organized. They have a good machine. So they really are able to take voters out on the election day. This is quite a tradition in Mexico. And so probably we'll see this big mobilization by the parties on the election day on Sunday.
And so what sort of future are candidates promising Mexicans?
Well, the president defends his two-thirds majority in Congress and hopes to win over some of the 15 governors in order to continue his political project, which is a kind of odd mixture between centralistic and social democratic paternalism. And the opposition hopes to control the Congress in order to stop or at least hinder him from advancing on what they think is a dangerous and authoritarian restoration and a setback for Mexico's democracy. So I think the fight between those two visions will likely continue after the elections.
All right, good talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us, Sandra Weiss, in San Pedro Cholula.
Yeah, thank you.